What's up, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar with
Astonishing Melanie, and welcome back to Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. Today, my husband and I are going to be doing an overview of The Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer, Omnibus Volume 1, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us this advance review copy.
This Omnibus comes out in the direct market and book market on January 10th or 11th, depending on where you get your books. What we're looking at here is the standard edition cover by Ryan Ottley. On the left-hand side is your direct market cover, also by Ryan Ottley. And that one's only available through your local comic book shop or places like cheapgraphicnovels.com or Walt's Comic Shop, Comics Bugle, Dying Breed Collectors, Organic Price Books, In-Stock Trades, places like that. But let's shift the focus back to this because everything else is the same.
I love how on this cover, his webs are dynamic and almost 3D-ish shooting out at you.
Yeah,
But
I think McFarlane really changed the way a lot of people drew that, what we call spaghetti webbing. But yes, this is your character, Spider-Man, and in the background is this mysterious character, a new character that appears in this very omnibus. His name is Kindred, and he, or she, will play an important part in Peter Parker's life.
are they a kindred spirit, perhaps?
They're kindred something.
Oh.
Here's your creators. Nick Spencer, of course, writing the book, and the majority of the artwork in here is supplied by Ryan Ottley and Humberto Ramos. The Marvel logo down there.
So on the spine, we not only have the stylized logo, but also quite a few graphics, right? Because it's not just Spider-Man, but it's webbing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad they're doing this. Definitely fits a certain era of Spider-Man. You can tell this is a different era than the JMS era or the classic era. But there you have, again, the artist down here, Volume 1, but it is The Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer. On the back...
On the back, we have two columns of his supporting cast and villains.
And the coming of Kindred. That's right.
And this is the first time I've read the female Electro. I like her.
You're all about that, huh?
Yes.
I love that Norman is in his straitjacket.
And he's just kind of meh at the bottom.
He does play a part in this, but you do have some characters you haven't seen for a long time, newer characters, and something about the beginning of Peter Parker getting an apartment. But here's what's collected in here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The price being $125. Underneath the dust jacket,
we have a wraparound image by Ryan Ottley of Spider-Man and the Tri-Sentinel, or Ulz.
Nope, just tri-sentinel. Okay. I see what you did there. Which we hadn't seen for a while, or at least in Spider-Man comics. So we're going to talk about this book, and just in case you hadn't read some of the things leading up to this, because this all takes place immediately after Dan Slott's run, and there were a lot of changes in Dan Slott's run for Spider-Man. But in case you haven't read any of that, this kind of resets his status quo as far as where he is, who he's with, his money situation, his job situation. In case you haven't read those, maybe put us on mute, because this does spoil what kind of happens with, well, not a lot, and we're not going to tell you how he got there, but does kind of spoil a little bit as to what happens towards the end of the Dan Slott run. Alright, you were forewarned. Let's get this party started. Alright, so we're going to crack this open, red and paper, as you do, because it is Spider-Man.
Nuh-uh. Spider-Man Beyond has blue and paper.
Spoilers. The Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer. Here are all the credits for the different issues, which we'll be talking about here in a little bit, what's collected in here, but all the artists, all the colorists, all the different writers that do help out, even though it is by Nick Spencer. In the Full Circle story, for example, there are other writers that help, but this is mainly giving credit to the artists, including Patrick Gleason. So kicking it off with Free Comic Book Day 2018.
And this is a good issue. I liked it. It was just back to basics comic book story.
Yes, this technically, yeah, I think volume 1 of the trade paperback, because this has been collected before in trade paperback format. I think the first volume was called Back to the Basics, which it really does feel like that.
Oh, well, that's the first 5-6 issues?
Yeah, the first story arc.
Like
so, what does this collect, Astonishing Melanie?
It collects Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 43, 16 Hunted, or HU.
HU.
18 hue, 19 hue, 20 hue. Well, that's just 16 through 20 anyway. No, it doesn't have 17. Oh, my bad. Amazing Spider-Man Full Circle from 2019, and that's one issue.
And then material from the, what was it?
Free Comic Book Day 2018,
which we looked at.
About.
So this is the beginning of Nick Spencer's era of Spider-Man. Again, this is all taking place after Dan Slott's run. And what Melanie said is that this really does feel like a fresh start. Because during Dan Slott's run, he was going through the Spider-Verse. There are different Spider people coming through and helping him. At one time, he was kind of like Tony Stark. There was the Parker Foundation, when he was just super rich and kind of like a Tony Stark type of character. You had Moreland and all the Moreland family coming for the Spider people. This is just Spider-Man down on his luck again and not making that much money, kind of losing his job because of something in the past, which we won't get into, and also the status quo of his relationship. So, very important. If you're a fan of the Mary Jane and Spider-Man stories, I always thought this page was so awesome, because this is a throwback to one of my favorite moments. If you go back and watch that video, my top 15 favorite Spider-Man stories, this is the Matt Fraction and Salvador La Roca annual, where it's after the Civil War. During Civil War, they're being hunted, and it's just a moment when they were still married, and it's a beautiful moment, but it was just Peter dreaming.
We went on top of there once.
We didn't quite make it that far up, but it's just Peter dreaming. So his new status quo is that he's kind of single again, maybe for a little bit. He's living with Randy's Robbie's son. Robertson.
Robinson.
Yep. And Fred Meyer. Now, Fred has a secret, of course, because he is Boomerang. That's right, he's living with one of his arch nemesis. How did this even happen? And he's been friends with Randy for a while. Randy's a character has appeared from time to time, but he's a big character here, part of his big supporting cast.
So that's the beginning of the bad Parker luck, and then he gets to, fighting with heroes for a couple of pages, and people are annoyed by him. He's losing respect from other people. We see that the Kingpin has a plan to kind of isolate him, and that's like how he's going to get at him. Even when Doc Ock had control of his body, and as a superior Spider-Man, and finished or wrote or finished a paper for him, now he's like, oh, he plagiarized it, so people don't respect him, he gets fired.
Yep.
And May doesn't respect him.
What? She still loves him.
Well, yeah, but
she wants to teach him about responsibility and being on his own.
He doesn't know.
Yeah, because the whole idea of Spider-Man not knowing anything about with great power comes great responsibility is just ironic.
She doesn't know to what extent.
Now, Nick Spencer, I think, he's no stranger to Spider-Man. He wrote the, Deadly Foes of Spider-Man series, which has been collected in Omnibus format. He wrote this series for Image that I love. It's called The Fix. And he has a very humorous side, which I thought fit perfectly for this book. Mm-hmm. So there he is, smooching on Mary Jane. What does that mean for our couple? Here's a backup story by
Mysterio issue 1.
Well, not Mysterio, but Humberto Ramos.
Well, no, I'm sorry. That's
It's okay.
the issue.
But we do have the appearance...
It's meta. It's by Mysterio himself. Okay, so here's Kindred.
Yeah, so this is Kindred. It's a character that makes an appearance here. And the more you read the Omnibus, the more you read the story, the more you see that, Kindred actually knows a lot about Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Who exactly are they? And how do they know? Now, that revelation comes in Omnibus Volume 2. So, there are lots of hints here. But
wow, that's a long time.
Because he was playing the long game. This started in 2018. And speaking of long game, there's hints here at the very beginning of issue number 2 about the return of a character that plays, of course, a big important part in The Hunted. So we're not going to talk about each storyline, but there are some really unique things that Nick Spencer was doing on his run. Like, I love, throwing it back to Amazing Fantasy number 15 with that, what is that machine called? The accelerator. Genome Accelerator, right? And... it's the same machine that...
it's called exactly Accelerator in this, but okay, Genome
Excelsior.
Excelsior,
yep,
that's what it is.
Excelsior. It's the fight with the Tri-Sentinel. Again, you're going to see...
Oh, wait. Let's see the Spidey Tri-Sentinel.
Oh, he shows up, I
it,
think,
yeah.
in this page, right? After...
Yeah, there we go.
It's ridiculous humor like that. Again, going back to the
Right.
basic... Even though I say it's more grounded, there's intergalactic things that are happening here. Not cosmic, not affecting the entire Marvel Universe.
Not Beastie Boys intergalactic.
Okay.
But this is definitely the basics with this because he is split from his Spider-Man self, and so it's kind of like wacky hijinks of a sorts of them being split apart.
Yeah, so Peter Parker and Spider-Man have split.
Spider-Man really?
We'll
Back
leave
to basics.
We'll leave it at that. There are several other stories that happen through these pages, several returning characters like Black Cat, a lot of it leading into the storyline called A Hunted, which is a really cool story where it's Kraven and his kin have captured all the creature-like spider people and put them in Central Park to hunt them down. And it's a really cool story because Peter Parker has to team up with a lot of these people. Like, I mean, we're talking about characters like the White Rabbit, Stegron, what's his name, Gibson, Armadillo, Toad. If you're a creature-like type of character...
Who's that?
I can't tell. That's
It's
the
Panda. Panda person, no. White Rabbit's
White
over there.
Rabbit's over here. I don't know who that is. But yes. Oh, there's a really touching story in here that I wasn't expecting to find through these issues. But again, Spider-Man is left unconscious. He wakes up with his black costume. So it's a lot of throwbacks to just different stories.
Say, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, a lot of throwbacks, a lot of love for those stories. Have tie-ins to Absolute Carnage.
That one page was like the exact same as the cover, wasn't it? Never mind. You guys saw.
Okay. Now we have Patrick Gleason coming in as an artist. And if you're not familiar with Ryan Ottley's work, he's the gentleman that drew Invincible for, oh my gosh, 90% of the run. Humberto Ramos, no stranger to Spider-Man. You also have some issues in here by Chris Bachalo. And Patrick Gleason coming over from the Distinguished Competition to start drawing Spider-Man. Very nice. And actually plotting some of the stories, writing some of the stories in here.
Oh, I get it. DC. Distinguished Competition?
I didn't come up with that. Stanley did. That's all Stanley. You have the return of Spider-Man 2099. What is he doing in the present? J. Jonah Jameson has a podcast now interviewing Spider-Man.
Oh, this is such a good issue.
And there's Chance making a return. So obscure characters, Mog right there, that you haven't seen for a while make a return. So really this takes it back to the basics. I don't know how many times we're going to say that. Let's go and look at the issue Full Circle. So Full Circle
hardcover
was previously released in trade paperback and in a deluxe edition. It's hardcover. But this was an interesting idea. So it's an idea to take seven different creative teams. Like you have Jonathan Hickman and Chip Zdarsky.
So I think Hickman started it, if I'm not mistaken.
It's right here.
Here we go.
With
Hickman did start it. And you pass it on to Gary Dugan, and then pass it on Nick Spencer, etc., with no certain goal in mind. You just add to the story. Like I like to do as a game in my classroom. Like people pass around the paper and you add to the story. So you have to keep that in mind as you're reading it, that they had no idea what they were getting. You have to put forth effort. You need to in order to get through it, because it's going to change tone or direction. And yeah, that's my advice. You just gotta stick with it.
So what you're saying is what it really needed was a vision, an editor to say, okay, this is where we're going from point A to...
It's supposed to come back around.
Well, it did, but I see what you're saying. Like, they needed a little more direction. I thought it was an interesting idea. Yeah, an interesting experiment with Peter Parker. Different artists that you saw. And speaking of different artists, let's take a look at some of these variant covers all the way in the back.
The book has 1,328 pages.
And some of the artists back here, Jeffrey Scott Campbell. We saw some Nick Bradshaw. We saw some Shane Davis, Terry Dodson. That is an awesome piece by J.G. Jones, of course. Conan piece. Lots of Conan love. Conan, why didn't that ever happen? That's awesome. This is a really cool... I love when they do things like this. Like the original idea for the covers. These are all the covers, the connecting covers. And then what the finished product looked like. This is by Lionel Francis Yu. So Craven looking a little bit different down here than he did up there. And there are a lot of variant covers. And they all have this nice blue frame around it.
The texture kind of like his suit, perhaps.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that. Good job. Like the pattern that he would wear on his suit. These are different takes on the characters that we know, like Doc Ock back here, the Green Goblin, the Vulture.
That's awesome.
That's a
Oh,
Venom.
look at his wings.
Venom Island variant. Whoa. Oh, for Marvels. Okay. I always
That's
like
the
that.
magnet on our fridge.
I always like that cover
Yeah.
too. Pepe Larraz did that one. I remember.
I look at it a lot. And I make up a story in my head.
I think this is the script, isn't it? This is the afterword. I'm sorry. This is the layout of the paper in the first issue of the pages. You do have the actual ideas behind Full Circle here between the creators and the editor on Spider-Man. Full Circle art back here and the script. You want to break into comics, you can try drawing the script yourself.
Aw, what a good idea.
That's what my friends and I used to do when we were kids.
Aw.
And then the end pages. Paper. Alright, let's take a look at the binding and then talk about the build of this.
We've got sewn binding for the 1,328 pages.
Not that big of an eye, huh? We've seen bigger. But the book didn't really have a problem laying over whether you're in the beginning of the book or
The back. What about the middle?
Oh, good question. What about the middle? I thought we had it in the middle. We can't show that. That's a nightmare page. Yeah. Very minimal gutter loss. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about that. So, you have a little bit of a gutter curve right there. Now, as far as the paper stock, it feels thicker than the JMS Spider-Man Omnibus, but there is some bleed-through from the opposite page. Here, let's...
So here you can see some of the narration box, which honestly, when I read, I don't notice. But now that you point it out, yeah, it is really noticeable.
Well, I mean, I like to point it out because it does bother some
Yeah.
people, you know? And like I said, we have 2 big LED lights. I like to remind people of that. But it doesn't mean you're not going to notice if you're just reading on your couch next to your not nightlight. What do people use? Lamps?
Bedside
lamp.
table lamp?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. The Enforcers are back. Yeah, there's a lot of characters that made returns in this omnibus. Be ready, though. I will tell people ahead of time. Like, when we're used to reading modern comics, a lot of times people are like, oh, that's a quick read. This is a little bit dialogue heavy, would you say, compared to other runs that you've read?
I wouldn't say heavy, but not light. Maybe 3/4 heavy?
Okay, this is dialogue 3/4 heavy, if that makes sense, in your measurement that Melanie just came up with.
It's not heavy.
It's
Are
not
you
it's not a fast
comparing
read.
it to like other main titles. I mean,
Even compared to Dan Slott's run, I think this is more dialogue heavy, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, because we always complain about how comics...
Well, definitely more dialogue than Savage Avengers.
Yes, I think it's dialogue heavy, and that's the way that Nick Spencer writes.
Oh.
Now, don't expect things either like Deadly Foes of Spider-Man in here, like in-your-face humor every single page. Some of the build-up comes a little bit slower, and it is there from time to time. Especially with the roommate stories, with Randy's little side story with his girlfriend. You can find out all that stuff. And then, of course, some of the supervillains that they use through here. There's a lot of heart in this. It kind of reminded me of classic Spider-Man in a way. Like a little bit of Roger Stern's run, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. I recommend it.
You get the Astonishing Melanie's seal of approval. We'll make a graphic one day. But that's it. That's it.
Only dream.
That, as they say...
That's how you say it, right? Is that...
Close.
Oh, okay. If you're interested in purchasing this book, please check out our sponsors.
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that was the build, content, and page count of this book. Let us know if you plan on picking this up, what you think of Nick Spencer's run as compared to other creators. And please put a smile on our face for free and smash that like button and see if you like anything in the Sprite Shop.
And everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.